What's going on, everybody? My name is Nick.
And my name is Dave.
And this is the Deep Dive, and we are officially in the season of Advent. I don't know how we got here. This year has flown by. I feel like we just got done with our Christmas series last year.
It really has been, particularly I'd say the last 2 or 3 months have just flown by.
Yeah, like gone in a snap. It's been wild.
But it's good.
It's been a great year, good times, but...
It's the most wonderful time of the year.
That's what they say.
I've
There's
heard
actually
that.
a couple songs about that, probably.
Yeah. So, yeah. All right.
Well, we are starting our new series in Advent, where Dave is kind of talking about being present and being in the area. Well, that's what we're talking about today. Is
Right.
keeping the gift of presence.
The gift of presence, because we think of gift and present
as the same.
Playing with that word a
presence,
little bit, yeah.
like being present.
I think we're ready to get into this.
Okay. Let's do it. Well, Dave, I'm not going to lie. I was a little thrown off this weekend with the Georgia game being on Friday night. Normally, we have the next day to debrief, but I didn't have that next day to debrief because we weren't here yet.
Okay. But how did you manage to get through Saturday without my take on the game?
I didn't.
Okay.
I just froze and just... I don't know. But anyway, no.
It was one for the ages, though.
That was a wild game.
And I am thankful that it was Friday night because, I mean, can you imagine church this morning?
I know, we'd have been dragging a little bit.
Yeah.
But it was a good game, good times. How was your Thanksgiving? Did y'all have any fun?
It's good. It's good. I'm about to sneeze. Maybe not. Yeah, it was fine.
Anticipation.
It was different this year because we did not have a big family gathering. We had a one small family gathering, and then Teresa and I, she doesn't like me saying this because she thinks people will think her pathetic, but it was just Teresa and me on Thanksgiving.
Right.
And we had a lot to do, doing some stuff at the house. And so it gave us a day to do that, or actually 2 or 3 days to do that. So it was good.
Well, what was the best thing you ate?
It was turkey and dressing.
Turkey and dressing? Just the classics?
Yeah, we had the classic meal.
Yeah,
for sure.
Good. Yeah, and we got together with Rachel's family for breakfast, my family for like a late lunch, and then we went to go see Red One, the movie. Do you know that one?
I don't, because I thought the words that were going to come out of your mouth was you went to see Wicked, but
we have seen Wicked. We saw Wicked.
We saw
last
Wicked
Monday.
too. Yeah, we saw Wicked on Friday.
Okay.
Yeah,
we saw it last Monday, and then on Thanksgiving we saw the Red One, which is essentially Santa gets kidnapped, and The Rock goes and saves him.
You paid money at the actual theater to do this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
You're such a great dad.
It was a good time. It was fun and a good movie, but it was just a good celebration to the, oh, wow, that came from out of nowhere.
Yeah, he saw my pain.
Good looking out. But anyway, Dave, while you're rehydrating, getting that little tickle out of your throat there, why don't you kind of give us a quick debrief on what you talked about this morning?
Well, we are looking at, we're centering around, it's really a very traditional pattern, and I haven't done this in a while, where we really kind of delve into these words that are around the Advent wreath, which, it is hope, and then peace, and then love, and then joy, and then on the Christmas Eve, you light the Christ candle, the center candle. And so as a way of doing this, we're looking at the gift of Christmas presents, but how we can be present with hope. Mm-hmm. How we can give the gift of peace this Christmas. And so that's really sort of the structure. This week was hope. And and we had actually 2 readings this morning. The first, we looked at Isaiah. Isaiah is an Old Testament passage. And it was written, actually, lots of times people will jump over what the Israelites were experiencing, go straight to the prophetic part about predicting Jesus, the Messiah, wonderful. He will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. So, but the first part of that, he is addressing the people that walked in darkness. So what darkness were they walking in? Well, they were in the Assyrian captivity. It's when Assyrian forces had taken over during the Assyrian Empire. They had come and taken many, particularly the leaders, the upper class people from Israel into captivity. And so he's writing to them to give them hope that God has not deserted them, because I'm sure they were feeling pretty deserted at this time.
Sure.
And so, he reminds them of some better things. He reminds them, for example, of, the time that Gideon's army of 300 had defeated the Midianites. And so that God, remember these past times that God was with you, and God hasn't deserted you. And then he points to the Messiah and says, a child shall be born, and his name shall be called Emmanuel. Wonderful Counselor and Mighty God, Everlasting Father. And so, some things about that is, first of all, it wasn't immediate. These are things that are in the future. So many times when we're in hopeless situations, it's good for us to remember that God's been with us, but realize it may not be overnight. It might be, it may take a while before our prayers are truly answered.
Yeah.
And so if people are walking through a season of darkness, a season of hope, remembering that God is with you in that place, but there's also some good news, that's coming, that Christ is with us, and his kingdom will reign forever and ever. So that led us into the New Testament passage, which was the Joseph story, where the angel visits Joseph, and most people, even if you just marginally know about the Christmas story, know this story. Yeah. Mary becomes pregnant. Joseph, they hadn't had a relationship yet. So Joseph is going to divorce her quietly, which is his right to do. It's actually the law to do. Yep. And but the angel appears and says that that is the Holy Spirit. And so at the end of that, it talks about you were to name him Jesus, which means Emmanuel, God with us, which is really probably going to be the theme scripture for all the sermons. Yep. Emmanuel, God with us. That is the gift of presence. That is God, God's presence with us, the greatest gift of all. Right. So, from there, I kind of looked at, some of the things that are challenges of hope. So what are the things that challenge your hope?
I don't want to take the thunder of what you were saying, but I really actually resonated with you were kind of speaking about the busyness of the season, and there's been, even recently in the last couple months, like I have just felt so
it's overwhelming,
extremely busy. You know what I mean? Like whether it's taking kids from this to that, or coaching, or work stuff, or family stuff, like it's just everything has really been, I'd say, honestly, kind of taxing, like emotionally, spiritually, physically. And it was just a reminder that this season can easily get to that unless I'm more intentional with the time that I have. Right. And so I really hit that. And I see, like, in my business that I don't take enough time to recognize what's good around me, but also I kind of just lose hope because I just got to go to the next thing. You know what I mean? Like I don't sit and think, I hope this happens or this changes or whatever. Like I'm like one thing to the next, to the next, to the next. I take one hat off, put another one on. Does that make sense?
I think if you're dealing with something that really needs some process, like, yeah. I know that you just, had to move your dad into assisted living. Mm-hmm. And so there's a task to do that, but there's also some emotional things to process around that for him, yeah. and for you, you know, as your dad is entering a new phase. Right. And so what busyness does, it doesn't allow us to kind of deal with those things. It's like, you've got this, to use and to be the best example, but a wound mm-hmm. that needs to be dealt with, but you don't have time to keep on knocking off the scars just with the busyness that we have. Right. And so things don't really ever change. And so it really is easy to lose hope, and lose sight, and certainly to get so busy that you don't focus on the things that really give life meaning and joy, and relationships with other people. Yep. You get so busy with the task of life that we forget to live the life. Yeah. And Yeah, I get that, and the Christmas season can do that, and there's so many distractions that were there, and there's some things that we can do. I think simple things. I had the image of the family at the Christmas dinner all on the phones,
Yeah.
and unfortunately that strikes home too much.
Yeah.
Because just at Thanksgiving, looking around, everybody's on their phone.
Yep.
Rather than engaging with one another. And so, how we can, in a very practical way, I think, be more present with people is just put the devices down. Or have some sort of boundary around that.
Yeah. I think a lot of times I have found it interesting that there are times that I'll be looking at my phone for a score of a game that I could be watching with the people that I'm with. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, why are we taking kind of the community out of it, even though it's accessible real quick here? Like, I remember growing up watching football with my cousins who I'd only seen like once that year or whatever, just that was what was on TV, but there was relationship built around that, those times and you'd have those conversations in between downs or whatever. But now that you can check it, sometimes it's just like, oh, you just glance or you're reading the thing while other people are talking around you, and you're just not as engaged with the person across the table.
You're making a memory.
Yeah.
With those people. I mean, you do that, particularly if it's a good game or if you're watching the Georgia game with somebody.
Yeah.
That would have been quite a memory.
Yeah.
So
of how
I talked to several people who were there at church this morning.
Yeah.
Got home at 3:00 in the morning. So, yeah, we're back on football again. But yeah, so that was one, just living life in December.
Yeah.
It can be very, very hectic and busy, but the other part is that, like, there are people that are dealing with some woundedness, some really difficult things. And, we've looked around the room at folks that had lost, people, spouses and other significant people in their lives this year. That's not an easy place to be. And I've walked through that, and, I shared from my own personal experience of being the pastor of a church where there's certain expectations on you. And I'll be honest with you, I was pretty vulnerable in the service. I got pretty resentful of that. It's like, I've got to be up. I've got to go to all these parties and be engaging.
Yep.
I've got to lead in worship and be joyful. And so I found my place, and it was during a time I lost 5 family members in a space of about 3 years one time. And some of the deaths were extremely tragic. I talked about one of them this morning, and unexpected. And so, you get so busy you can't deal with that. And, it's a sad and lonely place to be. And you can feel hopeless in those situations. And you can feel like, will I ever be normal again? Will Christmas ever be normal again? My mom and my dad and my sister and my niece, they're all passed. Those were the people that, I looked forward to being around the Christmas tree with the most. And now they're not there. Yeah. What's Christmas going to be like? Yeah. And, that, I think that is, being in the hands and feet of Christ, that is a place where we can step in. And first of all, we're not going to be able to take that pain away, and certainly not take those people's places, but we can be there with them as Christ is with us, and offer them hope that you will get through it, particularly people who have been through it before. I love Christmas now. Yeah. And that seems like a long time ago, although it was about 10 or 12 years ago, but I can remember it well enough to know it was a very dark and lonely time. Yeah. Yeah.
And I know in service you said it was about 2 or 3 years where really, I guess you were kind of in this mode, this zone where Christmas was just tough. It was tough for the expectations of being the pastor, but then also dealing with kind of the emotional toll, as you said. And you said about me and with my dad, is like, I think it's a good thing to remember for all of us is that whenever we're in these hard times, I think a lot of times we look for the quick, the quick way out or the microwaved solution where it's like, okay, I could just put this in the back burner and go ahead and move forward. But there are just some things in life that you have to walk through, and sometimes it feels tedious and sometimes it feels slow, but it's worthwhile to work through it so that you can come back to a
It
place
feels
of joy.
It feels painful. You'd
Yeah.
rather run away and do something else,
Right.
because you know it is painful. You
Yeah.
know, to imagine, a Christmas morning, without that person there, it's painful.
Yeah.
It's a painful truth. But that is the gift of presence, that Christ is with us. God is with us, Emmanuel. And I think I lots of times tag on this, particularly known in places of hardship
Yeah.
and distress and grief. God seems to come alongside us in a special way that time, in ways that maybe we've never ever experienced before, to experience that hope. And I won't get into stories of how I came out of my depression and grief, how I walked through that. But only to say, I think lots of times finding the place in the quiet to realize the self-awareness of that.
Yeah.
I've still to this day would say, well, I feel like I kind of got through those services, those parties, fine.
Yeah.
Didn't know when we knew. But people who knew me well
Right.
knew I was not my best self.
Yeah.
And I can remember things that would trigger me. And some of the stuff now that I actually kind of like, kind of the sentimental parts of Christmas, but that just really got on my nerves when I felt like people were being overly sentimental about something during those
Right.
times. And the superficiality always gets on my nerves. But
Sure.
that part too, those two things just really triggered me during those 2 or 3 years.
Yeah. Well, while we're kind of here in this topic, I know you mentioned it in service, but just in case you're just catching the podcast, or maybe you're not even part of the church, but you somehow found the podcast or whatever, and you're in the area, here at Hickory Flat, we do have a service. Normally, we either call it the Longest Night service. This year, it's the Blue Christmas. It just kind of, we call it based on where it lands in our calendar, essentially, but it's a service that's designed for people who might have a hard time during Christmas, who might have lost somebody or had some sort of medical diagnosis that's really just kind of put a damper on things around the holidays and stuff like that. And it's a service put on by our Stephen ministers, and it's just a good space that if you just need that extra bit of love, care, somebody to come beside you, that it's a service for you. And that'll be on December 19th this
It's on
year.
December 19th.
Yeah.
Longest Night is December 21st. But I don't want to confuse us with throwing that out. But December 19th, which is a Thursday night. And what I like about that is the intentionality of that service.
Yeah.
People don't come to that service by accident. They've either come because they need that service, or they've come to be with somebody or to be there for somebody to offer them hope.
Right.
And so, it's not a long service. It's a very quiet and safe service. There's a chance to light candles, and sometimes putting these markers down, doing things like that intentionally during this season, something that's sort of sacramental in a way, I think goes a long way to help us cope.
Sure.
So I do lift that up this year.
And that is kind of one of our ways that we're trying to help bring just a little bit of hope back into some of these people's worlds. And as you talked about hope today, you kind of gave us a few practical ways we can work on it or apply it more into our lives, find that hope. Can you kind of go over those?
Yeah, that's right. So the first one was just being attentive.
Yeah.
I mean, we do not know what someone else might be going through.
Yep.
And I think just to lean into the empathetic side of us during Christmas, because it's so easy to be rushing someplace and get impatient because the checkout person is taking too long, or somebody is being a terrible driver, or, the line's too long at Chick-fil-A or whatever. To just take a beat and just realize that we don't know what that person that we're coming into contact with might be having.
Yeah.
And I think with family members and coworkers and that sort of things, also just to watch them, just be a little bit more attentive to what their mood might be.
Sure.
Because it might be an opportunity to give that gift of presence and healing to them. So the first one was that, just being more attentive. The second one was then, I think is to, if you can identify people that might need a little encouragement during the holidays, you know, the person who lost their spouse this year. So they might have been back in May, and just say like, hey, I'm thinking about you in a particular way this holiday season. It can be a text or an email, or whatever, but letters are nice too. But just finding ways to intentionally reach out to someone, and encourage them. The third one that I had was a tough one, and that was offering the gift of forgiveness. I think sometimes living in estrangement from somebody can feel like a real hopeless situation. Someone used to be close to, something that's torn them up. And I use the example because I heard it so much this Thanksgiving that like we got so politically divided as a nation, and a lot of families were, and there were some really, broken relationships over politics. And I think, to one thing about Christ coming for the whole world is to realize, that it's about people.
Yeah.
People trump politics every day of the week.
Yeah.
Our relationships are more important than always having to be right.
Right.
And this is a repeated theme we've talked about in services and in this podcast. But, the holiday season is a good time to say, hey, it's Christmas. We need to, 2025 is coming. We need to put the past behind us. Yeah. Forgive one another and move on, with what's really important in 2025.
Right.
It is 2025, yeah.
It will be 2025.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the other one is real practical. Is just sharing your faith, and however that comes. Maybe you have an opportunity to share how Christ has brought you joy in a real personal, not pushy or overburdening way to somebody. But I found that two times that it's really easy to do that is Christmas and Easter.
Yeah.
The two pretty important days, because a lot of people are looking for some place to go if they don't have a church home. That a simple invitation. Hey, come on Christmas Eve. I'll sit with you. In 3 weeks from today, is our choir Christmas program, and they've got a bunch of extra singers. A lot of people in the church who don't sing throughout the year are joining them for the Christmas program. It's going to be fantastic. There's going to be a ton of people singing, great music. And people want to hear the Christmas. I mean, we get so tired of nothing against Mariah Carey or anything, but, we get so tired of All I Want for Christmas.
Yeah. We
want to hear, the traditional Christmas carols, and when we sing in those and some other beautiful sacred Christmas songs. Yep. So it's a great, that's a great way to invite them. And of course, you've already mentioned the longest night service. That's more of an intentional thing, but there may be somebody in your world that service could really benefit. Yeah. So, I mean, there are 4 very practical, that anybody could have thought up ways, though, that we can offer the gift of hope this Christmas.
Yeah, and I think the common theme I see kind of interwoven into all of them is being, and really kind of start with that first one, is that just being intentional with the people you're around. Looking and be in that relationship. You can get caught up in the gifts. You can get caught up in all the lights, you can get caught up in all the things that go on around this season. But remember that the people you're with and the people you're around are important too, and making sure you're
one of the points
to them.
One of the points that I took out of the sermon, because I knew it was going to be a long service, but I was going to talk about that it is a crazy, very busy season, and so in some ways we can embrace that, as long as we keep our focus on the people that are around us.
Sure.
And so, running out to do those errands with your kids, those give it that kind of knocking around. My dad used to call that knocking around, go knocking around with dad. And those, if you're attentive to the people around you, it can kind of reframe and recast this busy, crazy season where we're trying to run down through a to-do list. And if we don't get to it, people are more important than that thing.
Yep.
So it's a wonderful time. It is now in our culture and society, we devote 1/6 of the year, because it really begins right after Halloween now.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of that is driven by economics with the retailers needing to make them. But, people like people need Christmas. They love Christmas. That's why they start decorating early and start hearing Christmas music earlier and earlier. And it's because it's such an important part of our lives.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
It's good, and it's a great thing to start here in this Advent season, and just the reminder to be present, be with people, and wherever you go, like you said, going to run errands, going from this event to that event. Be intentional in the car with the people you're with. Be intentional in your workplace. Be intentional in the grocery line. You know what I mean? Like there's just a lot of places where we can help people see joy and the hope that we have, because we know the greatest gift of all is coming. You know, and we want other people to know that as well and to feel that. So, as we are here, we are about to wrap this thing up. If you guys have got any comments or anything that you want to add to our conversation, drop it in the box below on Facebook, on YouTube. Dave, do you have anything you want to give us a sneak peek?
Oh, well, just it's going to be a great Christmas season. You know, I'd go online and look at our list of things. I'd find a way to plug in here. The church got the women's tea this Sunday. We've got some stuff for kids, several things for kids and youth.
Yep.
There's a Christmas family music movie at some point in the.
December
So there's a lot of ways to connect with the community here at Hickory Flat, and so I hope people will do that.
And one thing I don't think we mentioned in service or whatever, but on December 22nd, it's PJs and Pop-Tarts. You going to wear your jammies?
No. I got to preach, man.
Yeah.
That would be weird.
In your jams.
I wore a tie today. It's Advent. You know?
I know. Look at you.
Yeah, I know.
You the man. Yeah. Got to freshen it up a bit.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, thank you guys so much for continuing to watch us as we kind of wrap up or get close to wrapping up this year. You guys have been with us all year long, so thank you guys for watching. And without further ado, we'll catch you guys next time.
God bless.